Okay, going on our Gemara, we're on a Bays here in Bava Kama, and we're on the line. I'll tell you where we are. We are we're starting at the line Toldo the Karen Mahi. Okay, Toldo the Karen Mahi. Okay, so now the Gemara, after having established that Karen is an Av, and we have two psukim to prove it, we want to know what are the Toldos of Karen. And here we go. Toldo the Karen, right? The Toldos of Karen Mahi. What are they? So, what are the subcategories? So, the Gemara gives a list of four: Negifa, which is pushing; Neshicha, which is biting; Ravita, which is squatting; and Viita, which is kicking. Okay? Those are the four subcategories, the four toldos of Karen. The Gemara asks a question here. Hold on a second. Maishna Negicha Dekari Layaf. We established that goring Negicha is an av. Why is that any different than anything else on this list? Maybe Negicha should really be a tolda. So Dichsiv, well, what's the Gemara's answer? Because it says, as it says, Dichsiv, whenever you have the dalid in front of something, that means it's coming to prove a point. Dichsiv, as it's written. Ki yigach, right? As it says, ki yigach. Okay? So the Gemara says, hold on a second. Negifa namichsiv. There's also a pasuk that says, and in fact, it's the same area in the Torah. It says, ki yigaf, when it pushes, negifa. So the pasuk has both negicha and negifa in it. And if you're going to tell me that the only reason why negicha was chosen as an av is because it has in it the pasuk of ki yigaf, well then negifa, pushing, should also be an av because there's also a pasuk that lists negifa, ki yigaf, it says. So the Gemara answers, Hi negifa negichahi, right? When we say pushing, pushing actually means goring, right? The Gemara says, I'll show you a proof. Ditanya. Now the Dalit should cue you. What's di? Di is a proof. Ditanya, we'll prove it because it was taught in a brisa, right? Ditanya, Tanya means it's taught in a brisa. Ditanya. So as it was taught in a brisa. Pasach benegifa, the sayim benegifa, right? The pasuk starts off talking about negifa and ends with negicha, yet we're talking about the same type of a case, right? So why would the pasuk talk about one to start and then end with the other? Lomer lecha, to teach you, zuhi negifa, zuhi negicha. The reason why the pasuk talking about one action, an ox damaging, says both negicha, goring, and negifa, pushing, is to teach you zuhi negifa, zuhi negicha. They're synonymous. Negicha, negifa, both refer to the same thing. Now, hold on a second. If that's true, then we have a problem, right? What's our problem? So the Gemara goes and asks, "My shna." Remember we had that earlier. What shna? Shna means what difference. So my, what's the difference? By adam dechsiv kigach. By a person, it says kigach when the animal gores, right? Umay shna gabe behema. But when it talks about an ox goring another animal, it says kigach, right? If they're both striking with horns, then why does it use two different phrases? When it talks about man, it says ki yigach, that when it gores. When it talks about a animal, it says ki yigof, when it pushes. So the Gemara says, okay, yes, they're talking about the same thing. But adam de islay mazla, right? A person who has mazel chsiv ki yigach. Behema de leislay mazel, an animal that doesn't have mazel, chsiv ki yigof. Okay, now what are we talking about here? Okay, what does that mean, mazel and everything else? Very simple. Mazel, as Rashi explains, means das, it has knowledge. Let's just picture the case. Step out of the page of the Gemara for a second and imagine the case. An animal, if it comes up against a man and an ox starts rubbing itself against you, you're going to realize that this is a dangerous situation and you'll move away. You have enough knowledge to realize that. An animal doesn't. So an animal could get injured by being pushed by an ox. A human being is not going to be able to be injured that way because as the ox gets closer, it's going to move away. But when an ox gores, what happens? The animal takes a running start. It's quicker than man, and obviously quicker than an animal, because an animal, if it doesn't have enough sense to get out of the way, enough mazel, das, sense to get out of the way for when the animal's pushing against it, it's for sure not going to have enough sense when it's goring. So when an animal gores, when the ox gores, both man and the ox can the animal can get injured. But when it's being pushed, it's only the man that gets injured, right? And that's what the Gemara is going to explain. right? And the Torah is using different terms to teach us a lesson. The muad la'adam have a muad la'behema. That an animal that's muad, right, to attacking a man is also muad, is also known to be able to attack a, right, to attack a animal, right? That's for sure. Why is that for sure? Okay, so think about it for a second, right? If an animal is habitual to attack a man, for sure it can attack an animal. And if it's going to attack now, if it's muar lebehema, if it attacks another animal, meaning it could push, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be able to attack a man. So it might not be habitual in attacking a man. And that's why the Torah comes and uses two different phrases, negifa and negicha, because it uses negicha to talk about damaging a man, because that's the only way an ox is going to damage a man, is if it gores the man. Okay? Now, when it talks about damaging an animal, it could also be damaging an animal by negifa. So the Torah will use both phrases. But that does not, our original question is, why was negicha considered an av? Right? Because it's mentioned in the pasuk. So the Gemara had objected, wait a minute, so's negifa. Negifa is not mentioned in the pasuk to teach you that pushing is an av. Negifa is mentioned to tell you this law that by animals, it's possible that an ox would damage an animal by way of pushing. Okay, let's go on in the Gemara now. The Gemara says, Neshicha Tola Desheni. Gemara has a problem. We had established that Neshicha is one of the toldos of Karen, biting. Now, hold on. Let's remember the Mishnah, right? We had Vita, right? Not Vita. Excuse me. Let's look back at the Mishnah. What was one of the damages that we saw in the Mishnah? Let's look back. So the Mishnah had said you had Hamava. What was Hamava? Hamava was damaging with teeth. And if we're going to say that there are three avos for Karen, Shane, right? Karen and Shane and Regel. So if I tell you the animal that is going to damage one of the toldos is Neshicha, where would you put that tolda? Under Karen or under Shane? Would you put the tolda, the subcategory of teeth, biting, right? Would you put that under the larger category of teeth or under the larger category of Karen? The Gemara puts it under Karen, and that's the Gemara's question, right? The Brisa put it under Karen, and this is the Gemara's question. Neshicha tolda de Sheni, right? Shouldn't Neshicha really be a tolda of Shane and not of Karen? The Gemara says, no. Why not? Because biting is not similar to Shane. How is biting not in the category of Shane? Shane yesh hanala zika. Anything in the category of Shane is going to be where the animal gets benefit. But when we talk about Neshicha, ha'ein hanala zika. There's no benefit to the animal. When we talk about an animal damaging by Neshicha, by biting, that's saying that the animal doesn't get any benefit from it. It's doing it solely with the intention to destroy. When we talk about the category of Shane, Karen, Shane, Regel, so different than Karen, which is the intent to damage, when it comes to Shane, what are we saying? We're saying that the intent here is not to damage, but the animal's intent is to eat something. So when it goes into the field, its intent is to eat. Okay, and the Gemara says similarly, right? Revitza uviita. When we talk about squatting or kicking, tolda the regelhi. Say that's a tolda of regel. That's where it belongs in the category of regel. Things done with the feet, squatting, kicking. Doesn't that sound like it should be in the category of regel? Gemara says, no. It's not similar to the category of regel. How not? Regel hazika matsui. When we talk about anything that falls in the category of regel, that's referring to damage that's common. The animal's walking and it destroys things as it's walking. Ha-ain hazika matsui. When it comes to the category of regel, the damages are not common. And since the damages are not common, right, so therefore it falls under Karen because that's what Karen has going for it. It's a category of things that happen that are not common for the animal. Okay, we'll stop here at this video and go on with our sixth video, and we'll start with Ela Todosen, Lav Chayotzuhen Damar Papa.